Hello my friends, John LaRufa here with another Straight Up Solo, and in this game, or this episode, we're going to take a look at Fayum, the newest release, at least at this point, from Friedman Freeze. Very popular designer, has done some pretty legendary games and done some other ones, very consistently throughout the years. I want to take a look at the solo game of Fayum and let you know how it plays and how I see it and whether it may be right for you from a solo purpose only. So let's take a look and check it out. Okay, so I have the game about 2/3 of the way through, maybe a little further, in a solo game. And as you can see on the board, there's a lot of stuff going on. This board started with a bunch of crocodiles, which are those green little tokens there, on the vineyard spaces or the grape spaces and the grain spaces, and also just one little settlement. And as you go through this game, the whole point of the game is that you are building and developing this land for the pharaoh, all right? And you're doing that through lots and lots and lots of card play. And you're getting these cards through a little bit of a deck building mechanism, except that you only get a certain number of them back every time that you do an administration phase, which is kind of interesting. Based on a couple of different rules and a couple of how much money you have. You buy cards from this market here, which is somewhat reminiscent of a modification of the market that you find in Power Grid from an auction standpoint. Basically, each of the cards have this even number in the upper right, and as you draw cards, the 4 lowest numbers will go into the active market here, and the upper numbers that are higher than that go into this futures market where they may or may not come down depending on what you draw. The game takes about, I don't know, hour, 90 minutes, maybe a little longer depending on how much you can concentrate and how fast you can play it through. I'm usually around a 90 minutes play, although there's ways on Board Game Geek to shorten that depending on what you're doing. As you can see, there's a lot of variety in the game from the card standpoint. I say as you can see because I've built all sorts of little different things out here. I'm going to show you a couple of turns, and then that'll kind of give you an example of how it plays. And I'm going to go through kind of the few turn actions that I have. Then I'm going to go through administration phase, buy some cards, do some different things. Okay, so that gives you a flavor of what you're doing. Now, as I said, you can see how many cards are in my discard pile right now. So I've gotten pretty deep into the game, and these are the cards that I have in my hand left, and then I've got some in the market. So right now I only have a couple of grapes and $7 to work with here. So let's see what we can do with that as we go into the game proper. Okay, so there are a couple of little rules. Number one, basically, whenever you play a card, whatever's in the red is what it costs to play it, and whatever's in the green is what you get for doing it. And then up here is what you actually do. The game itself comes with a very good, lengthy description about how each of the cards work. And there are a ton of different cards in this game. Many of them are kind of come in threes. So as you notice, there were 3 types of things here. So you have 3 grains, or a grain card, a vineyard card for grapes, and a quarry card for stone. And usually those will trip up. So you have 3 of the same type of card, but 1 for grain, 1 for stone, and 1 for the grapes. You also have like better versions of those that come out too. So it's not completely, utterly unique every single card, but there's a lot of variety. And here's an example of what I'm talking about. As you can see, you've got these 2 cards here. Okay, one is the Vintner and one is the Baker. They are basically identical in the style. You pay a resource and you put a guy on one of your workshops or whatever, and then they go ahead and they give you money, and that circle thing is points. And it just depends on what you've got. In fact, I've got all 3 of them sitting on here. There's all 3 of these cards. And they're sitting here later because they have the high numbers, and so they haven't come into the future market yet, or the current market yet. Okay, so what I'm going to do on my turn, I first decided that I'm going to build this pit. All right, now you say, well, how can I do that? I only have one of the 2 resources here. Well, in this game, you can spend $3 in place of any one resource that you need. So I'm going to pay that 1 grape. And then I'm going to spend $3, getting some change, to be able to play this card, the pit. I'm going to put one of these workshops over here at the end of a road. In this case, it's a bridge, but the bridges act just like roads. Then I'm going to get 3 points. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to get 3 stone. Okay? All right, so 1, 2, 3. All right. Now my next turn, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play this one here, the monuments. All right, I'm going to use my 3 stone to do it. I could do 1 to 3. I'm going to use 2 out of 3. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to pay 2 stone to put down 2 of those monuments, and I'm going to put one of them up here to finish this 3 space, and I'm going to put one of them down here to start this 5 space. And then I'm going to get 2 points for each of those that I built. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Now, I could keep playing cards. I could actually go ahead and buy some cards if I wanted, but I'm a little short. I've got some money. Or I could go ahead and take an administration phase. But what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to do this action where I'm going to build a town. Now, again, I am a little strapped on resources. I don't have any more of those. So I could decide to do something a little different, and maybe I will. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to buy this card right here, this trader card. It costs 3. So I spend 3. 1, 2, 3. Let me see, do I really want to do that, or do I want to just put a guy by the river? Actually, I'm going to spend, instead, I'm actually going to spend 4, okay? And I'm going to buy this grower card. Okay, now that I've emptied the market, I draw the first one off the draw pile over here, and it says a 74, so I slide this, actually goes right in the same spot, because the 24 was lower and the 86 was higher. And so that card is available for me to buy at any time on my turn. All right, now that I have this grower, I'm going to go ahead and use him, and I'm going to put a guy on a space that doesn't have any crocodiles on it. And I'm going to get 2 of these roses, which are wild resources. So that will help with my resource shortage here. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play this card. I can use the rose in place of the grain. And so I'm going to go rose, I'm going to go grape, and I'm going to go stone. All right, the reason I'm doing that is because I want to build a small town, because I get 6 points and $2. So here's my $2. Here's my small town, and the pieces in this game are limited. And then, well, these aren't limited. These are infinite, so is the money, but these special pieces to build things are. And then I'm going to get 6 points here, so I'm at 49, so that's going to put me up to, actually I'm at 99, and I flip over my thing, and now I'm at 105. Okay, so I am now out of cards. I could buy cards if I had some more money, but I don't. So basically I'm stuck, and you could do this at any time of the game. I'm going to do it right now, taking an administration action. So I look at the number of cards that I have in my hand. I get $3 minus the number of cards. I have 0. So I get $3. Okay. Then I can remove up to 2 guys from anywhere on the board, and I'll get $1 for each guy I remove. So why don't we go ahead and lift this guy off the board, and I'll go ahead and lift this guy off. Okay. So that's $2 more. All right. And then I'm going to take back the top 3 cards from my discard deck. So this is where you start to replenish your hand. 1, 2, 3. And I can take back additional cards by spending sequential additional sums per card. 1 for the first one, which I'll spend. 2 for the second. And so on. So I'm actually going to do this. I'm a little bit full on towns and such. I'm going to do it one more time. I'm going to go 3 here. And that is as far as I'm going to be able to go back. Now that's a problem, you see, because I need to build one more bridge to accomplish one of the solo goals in this game. I've already played a couple of solo games, and I started to do the campaign. So I'm supposed to be getting place 3 bridges. I can do a lot of different things. I can place 9 workshops, and I'm a little bit far away from that, so that could be a possibility. I could probably use this card to finish that up, and maybe I'll try to do that. But the problem with workshops is I have to build roads, so I'm stuck. So I really want to get this bridge card out, but I can't. So that is a conundrum, all right? And that's one of the only, I guess, stressors, I should say, in this game is I'm out of money and I can't get to it. Now what do I do? All right, so anyway, we are stuck with the situation. So I'm going to pay these, and maybe I can get down later deeper into the pile if I get some more money or figure out how to do that. Then I have to replace 2 current cards in the market of my choice. So I'm going to decide to discard this guy. And I'm going to discard, looking at the board situation here and everything, I think I'm going to want to discard this one. So then I draw 2 new ones. This happens to be a 28, so that's pretty low. We'll put that down there. And this happens to be a 2. Wow, very low. So again, you could have, the way these are shuffled, they can be all the way from, you know, the first card, which is that 2, all the way out until you get to 120, I think, is the top. Now, there's a second deck here because this kind of shows, once you exhaust this, now you kind of know you're in the final bit of the game down here, okay? So that was the end of this action, and so now I would continue to play. So it's a very open, very sandboxy game. The game ends when you reveal the 4 disaster cards in here, and they come into the... once they're out in the futures market, then you can no longer take this administration phase. I hate this glare. So then you kind of left with what you got, and you got to make the most of what you have. You can still buy cards out here, but you're just stuck, and you kind of finish off, you know, basically getting as much points as possible. One thing I didn't, and I'm not going through all the different things, I just wanted to show you just some of that gameplay. You're basically playing cards strategically until you decide to stop. Maybe you buy some more cards over here, and when you stop, you know, you look at that and you reset your deck and then keep going. But as you go, you're going to start burying cards, so your options are going to change. And that is the basic gist of FAM. There is no AI to play against. There is no Automa. There's none of that. It is a complete solo sandbox experience. You're trying to either get the most points, or you're trying to at least get 150 points for the first start of the campaign, and then start to get one of these in subsequent games to keep adding those. And then they let you get different achievements, which will make you more powerful with subsequent plays. All right, so that's the situation, and let's go ahead and talk about what I think about it. Okay, so I will give you some positives and some negatives of my opinion on this game. First of all, the positives are it's a complete sandbox. There is nothing to do from a solo standpoint as far as extra rules, special things. There's no solo opponent. There's no solo steps. It's a complete and utter sandbox where you're playing it all by yourself, trying to get the most points and maybe achieve a goal or 2. So if you like high score, if you like sandbox, that's great. Also, the card interaction is really good. I like the way that different cards do different things. You can kind of set up little engines for a little bit, score points, and then you kind of move on to something different and try something different. So as the board develops, your strategy has to change with regards to kind of how you're scoring those points. You saw me score points in certain ways, but that'll only last for so long, then I'll move on to something different, score points in a different way. I like that. I also like that as you know the cards, the gameplay and the choices get much more streamlined as far as what you're trying to do. Plus, you are just better off in anticipating, you know, what kind of cards you're okay to let go to the bottom of your deck versus which ones you have to preserve for a longer time to build up the board in certain ways. And so there's definitely a lot of strategy in that. Also, I always like that market. I like the idea of drawing cards and kind of having a little tension as far as what's going to come in, what's going to go out. And there's a little bit of tension in, you know, whenever you finish your administration phase, you're going to have to flush 2 of those cards, whether you like it or not. If you like all 4 of those cards, that gives you, you know, kind of a difficult choice as far as what you want to take down. So there is some thought to that and some good strategy. So overall, this game has a lot going for it in those ways. Now, my negatives. And also, the components are good. Things are clean. It's very easy to see what you're doing. The iconography on the cards is good once you understand what you're looking at. And this little handy-dandy guide is well written and easy to find what you're looking for. And that's great. Sometimes in these games, it's just like, Where is the rule I need? Once you learn the cards, it's easy. But in the meantime, you have these cards. They're clearly stated in numerical order, and it's very easy to say what they do. And they do a great job kind of explaining the the little differences and the nuances. So that's good. Okay, so negatives. First of all, without any Automa or anything like that, it is a complete beat your own score. Also, because it's a sandbox game and it's so freewheeling, the lack of tension is definitely there. And I don't like that. I wish there was more tension in this game. I wish there was more angst. Yes, sometimes you get that from the market, like I mentioned. But sometimes this game feels almost a little fat and flabby, as I've got all this room to do stuff, and I'm just kind of circling and, and then kind of doing this and churning out the points. And it's just missing something that I need in a solo game, pressure. Okay? I think it's very much missing that pressure. Sure, if you're trying to get the highest score possible and break, 300 or things like that, your own pressure is, you understand the game long enough where you're saying, I need to be scoring this amount of points, otherwise I'm falling behind. And that's some implied pressure, which is good, but I guess I'm not at that level yet, and I don't experience that while I'm playing. So I kind of feel like the lack of pressure and tension is a negative. Also, I think the game is just a little too long, and that's a shame. And so people, what I mean by that is you're done playing it before it's, at least I am, I'm done playing it before it's actually done. That's a problem, right? Because what happens there, if you are like that, is you have a harder time getting off the shelf because you don't have the feeling of I wanted to keep playing after it was done. And that's the problem with some games. Some games just outlast their welcome, and this one somewhat does that with me. Now, I've played it a couple times, and it's getting better and better as I get more familiar because it doesn't last as long. But I shouldn't have to feel like that with a game, right? I should be, that's why I actually really like games that end 1 or 2 turns before I'm ready, because then it's like, oh man, if I could have just gotten one more turn. Not in this game. When you see the end of the game coming, you still have many more turns left, and it feels like the end is anticlimactic. That is a big negative for me. Maybe it isn't going to be for you, but I find that be a problem. Finally, the way that the game ends is always the same, so you always have that trigger of those cards coming out. And also, and this is something that people have addressed in Board Game Geek, I really think this game needs to have some kind of set-aside mechanism from those cards. When you have all the cards in there, you can wait for your favorite cards, you can try to do that, you know what's coming, there is not as much tension and it just goes too long. So I think setting aside like 13 cards or something like that people have said, it makes this game much better. And I would highly recommend, if you're going to play it solo, you do something like that. Now, I know that there's some imbalances, there's possibilities you set aside a whole group of cards that make it impossible for you to do a certain strategy, but maybe that's okay. You may not have that card. You just need something. I feel like something about this solo experience is missing. And that is why I would not really go out and recommend that this solo should be for everybody who likes European board games. I think that I like it enough to keep it for a while. I'm really hoping that if they put on an expansion or something else, they tighten up the solo mechanism. I have a feeling, now I've never played it, I have a feeling this game would be great multiplayer, to be honest, because people are taking your cards that you might want, and you can't have the feeling of getting everything. And there is definitely going to be some interaction that is going to make the game more intense and more fun. But I'm, again, telling you this from a complete solo perspective. So, from a solo perspective, I gotta say that I can't fully recommend this one. It might be good if you love sandbox games. It might be good for you if you love high score games where you can just blow the points out and you're looking to do that. But I think that for me, I would have liked more. Now, I'm not gonna sell it because I think that there's a possibility that fan changes or something else from the designer might be able to turn what's a mediocre solo experience into a fantastic solo experience. I think there's hope there. So I'm going to hold on to it for a little bit and see what happens. But anyway, I hope this was informative. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done so already, and share this video with somebody who likes board games. Thank you so much. Have a great night.